But the number that jumped out to us, 42% of this overall number had seriously, not just considered, not an afterthought, seriously considered suicide in the past year during this pandemic. What's going on? What do we need to do?
Yeah, it is horrifying that our transgender and gender non-conforming youth are at such high risk of death by suicide. And, it makes sense in so many ways because of how much society others and diminishes and devalues and invalidates people that don't fit into a strict, traditional enforced gender binary. There's so much legislation that's out there this past year. There is, so many deaths, people, transgender women of color specifically dying, being murdered just for being them. There's so many discriminatory policies and lack of protections that are happening. And so, of course, things that are happening in society at large and the oppression that is experienced is going to have a psychological, emotional impact on the target demographic.
James, how do you have a conversation with an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old who's feeling suicidal and is so deep in it that they are willing to actually commit suicide?
Yeah. Well, I think
I'm so sorry. Actually, I would like to correct myself. It is not commit suicide. It's, how do you say it, AJ?
Take their life by suicide.
Take their life by suicide.
Because you mentioned that a moment ago, and I'd been in the suicidal moment in my life in 2016. So I survived to tell my story. And we've had this discussion on the show a few times about using different terminology to talk about suicide, as opposed to saying commit.
Right.
You say death by suicide. Explain why you did that, and then answer her question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for so long, there was a demonization of people who committed, quote unquote, committed suicide. And that language was used to sort of reinforce that there was something, that they were solely responsible for, that, again, it's this concept of othering people or experiences that bring up discomfort for ourselves to distance ourselves from others, which at the end of the day, we all experience intensity of emotions and difficulties and challenges. And those that are considering suicide are at their wits' end. They have often tried all kinds of things to feel better, and it's can be sort of a sudden sort of instance of something that's traumatic, but it's often a chronic depression and hopelessness given the society that we live in. So the more that we're able to use compassionate language, the more that we're able to recognize our common humanity and have these conversations and listen, not from a place of judgment or criticism, but from a place of, I care about you. Your feelings matter to me. Your experience matters to me. How can I be supportive? How can I help?
I will say this, though, James Guay, and because you're always here to help us find a way forward, right, to find a way out. And there was a bright spot in this survey, showed that young people whose households fully respected their pronouns reported attempting suicide at half the rate of those whose pronouns were not respected at all. So something as simple as understanding the pronouns of your child and using them correctly could decrease the chance that they attempt suicide by half.
Yeah, it's astounding how we behave and interact with our transgender, gender nonconforming communities makes a significant difference in valuing their lives and demonstrating that we care about them, and just simple things, right? There's a bunch of research that was done out of San Francisco State University, the Family Acceptance Project, and they found in their research that when parents even move slightly from a place of intolerance or hatred of their LGBTQ child to a place of tolerance and maybe to a place of acceptance, that each movement, each progression along the way has a exponential impact on their child as they grow into adulthood, right? And so, the thing, sometimes people blame LGBTQ people for the symptoms of depression and anxiety and suicidality and all this stuff that sometimes come with being an oppressed minority. But it's not an intrinsic part of who we are that has this outcome. It's the way that we're treated, right? So we need to treat ourselves and each other in the community much better. We need to acknowledge and honor the dignity and the brilliance of our transgender siblings, so that we can be a better, stronger community and tackle all these different systems of oppressions that interact even within our own community.
Well, James Guay, we appreciate you as always. Thank you for having these difficult conversations with us and continuing to educate us. We adore you.
Adore you both.